And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the Ridge Flora Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. As always, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, just put them in the comments below. People you'd like us to talk to, subjects you'd like to approach. If you'd like to sponsor, send us an email at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. We'll get you a rate card. Okay? Just that simple. Today we have a great friend, longtime friend of ours, Tommy Brandt, country music and Christian music star. Tommy, good to have you back with us, my friend.
Great to be with you, Barry. Hello, everybody.
Now you got back from a summer long playing rodeos, car races, state fairs, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we kind of stay up north when it's hot down here, and hit kind of both circuits. We go where there's a big crowd at, and that usually entails auto racing and rodeo. Those are two big crowds and two crowds that kind of love what we do. And
so we're in October, we're at the end of the season, and so you've come down where they keep the roads so nicely plowed. There's not much snow down here.
True that, for sure.
I was reading your bio, and I found out some things I did not know. You were the son of a carpenter. Is that right?
Yes, my dad was a carpenter and owned a bar when I was a younger guy. He owned a bar and then became a carpenter full time. So I did a lot of carpentry work with him and learned a lot. Learned about hard work.
So you grew up in Lebanon, Indiana, before he sold the bar and moved down here?
No, I was actually 5 years old when he sold the bar and moved down here. And I always say the jukebox at that little bar was my babysitter. And at 2:00 in the morning, my dad would get my mom and brother and sister and I, and we'd be at the bar, and we'd have to clean up the old stale beer and peanuts after that. And I still remember that smell to this day. But it's where I also learned how to love country music. Is that jukebox was he'd just hand us a roll of quarters, and me and my brother and sister would sit there and play and learn our favorite songs. And it was a weird way of growing up. But at 5 years old, we moved to Sebring here and been here ever since.
So when you were there, do you remember any of the country music stars you liked when you were a kid?
I tell everybody, and I still remember it to this day, my favorite song at 4 and 5 years old is "When We Get Behind Closed Doors."
Charlie Rich.
And she lets her, Charlie Rich, man, he was one of my favorites. And of course, all the Waylon Jennings and Jerry Reed was always a really good favorite of mine.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah.
Hey, now, at 16, you started working as a cowboy. Is that right? You started working at a cattle ranch?
I did, yes. My parents divorced when I was 16, and I wound up moving out on my own. Couldn't live with either one, and was pretty obstinate, I think is the word to say. I was a heathen back then, and so I met up with a friend, and they owned a cattle ranch over in Zolfo Springs. So I went over there and started working, and worked on that ranch for about 6 years as I was doing other things, singing, playing in the bars, and helping my dad occasionally in carpentry, but mostly just cowboying.
So you learned to rope and ride?
I did, yes, and I used to race motorcycles when I was a younger teenager, and so my job when I got to be a cowboy, everybody's like, "Oh, you roped and ride?" Well, I did a little bit, but for the most part, my job was to get on the three-wheeler at the time and push the cattle when we were in the wide open pastures. It takes a lot of ground coverage to push 500 head of cattle. So my job was to take a three-wheeler and rev it up and get out there, and I could cover a lot of ground and push the cattle. And once we got closer into the arena or into the stalls or where we were pushing them to, the chute gates, we would get on horseback then and push them all in.
So how'd you get in your first band as a singer?
I did not. I actually, a couple of friends of mine here in town had a band called Southbound, and they knew that I was pretty handy with music and pretty handy with electronics and stuff. I was always kind of a jack of all trades. So they had invited me to be a sound man, and I fell right in because I still to this day love running sound systems and running lights and smoke machines, stuff like that. It intrigues me. So for a couple years, that's all I did is just run sound and lights.
Well, when did you start, playing guitar and starting to write music?
Well, I'd always, from the time I was young as I can remember, I wrote poetry. Even in grade school, I always wanted to impress the girls, and I would write poetry and make it rhyme. And I already learned how to meter stuff out. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water, and I kind of learned how to do that when I was young and really enjoyed doing that. And then when I met my buddies, the Copelands, that they own SOS, Sebring Septic Tank here, they played guitar and sang, and we'd go to parties and stuff and hang out together. Well, everybody played guitar except me. So, of course, I grabbed a guitar when I was probably 16, 17 years old and started playing. And never came natural to me, but I could play and make do. I could fake it till I made it.
I think it was Segovia that said guitar is the easiest instrument to learn to play and the hardest to learn to play well.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you were like three chords in a cloud of dust. Like when you start writing, you just put some chords to it and then teach them how to play it, and then they just pick it up and play it while you were doing the sound.
Yeah, it kind of went that way. Actually, they would challenge me to write songs, which improved my songwriting, and I thank them still to this day for that. Every time we'd have practice once a week, and every week I'd come in and, hey, this is what I wrote this week, and the band would be like, oh, we'll play it, or trash can it. But they also would help me tremendously by saying, hey, here's a subject, write a song about this. And I mean, for instance, one day, uh, Steve Copeland, my buddy, said, hey, I want you to write a song this week about a Winnebago, a motorhome, a camper. And I'm like, really? How in the world do you fit that into a song? But I
Mm-hmm.
did. I went home and wrote a song about a Winnebago. And of course, they trash canned it when I got back. But it honed my songwriting skills because there ain't no telling what they would, encourage me to write about that week. And so I give them a lot of credit for. I've got probably 1,000 songs under my belt writing, and maybe 100 of them are worth recording, but that's the way songwriting goes.
Well, you wrote one. I guess it was your biggest hit was why.
In the country music side, yeah, and I'd gone through a divorce, and which kind of that usually comes into play whenever you're, you know, boozing and drinking and cutting up in the bars. So I messed up a marriage, and thank God we're still best friends to this day. Um, but that song was when I was going through my divorce, and it's kind of a comical song, but it got a lot of airplay and got the band a lot of recognition, so that's kind of cool.
Well, country music songs are generally songs about life, and divorces for a lot of people. That's part of life.
Sure, yeah, it is. It is. That's why people relate to it because country music usually tells stories about life trials, and everybody goes through those, and sometimes a good ending, sometimes a bad ending.
Well, you had a change in your life when you met Michelle. How now? And she's a PK. She's a preacher's kid. How in the world did you, as a rough and rowdy country music singer in bars, how'd you run up on a sweet girl like Michelle?
It was a God thing. I think he knew I was probably either going to wind up dead or wind up with somebody that changed my direction. And we were actually playing at the time was a place called Cafe Del Lago, the Mexican restaurant that right there on Lake Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And our band was playing in there, and she came walking in with her friends to eat dinner in there that night. And man, I saw her, and it was love at first sight. And I do believe love at first sight is a real thing because I caroused around a lot in my younger days, but when I saw her, it was different. I was like, wow, this girl is the real deal, and it wasn't, just a sexual thing for lack of better words. It was a wow, she was the package. And so I told my lead guitar player, I knew he played Keeper of the Stars, and he played it with just him and guitar. And I said, "You play that, I'm gonna go ask this girl to dance." And they said, "Go for it, go for it." They was always egging me on. And so I went down there and I said, "Hey, honey, would you like to dance?" And she said, "Nope." And of course, everybody in the room's looking at me because the lead singer comes off the stage to ask somebody to dance. It's kind of a spectacle. And I was like, "No, really, would you like to dance?" And she said, "No, no, thank you." And I'm like, "Oh no, what am I gonna do?" Well, her friends whispered something in her ear, and finally she said, "Okay, I will." Well, I found out later. I said, what did they tell you in your ear to get you to dance?" And they said, "He's a carouser. You need to make him fall in love with you and then drop him like a rock and serve him
Oh,
right."
ouch. Ouch.
So I wasn't her friend's favorite person by any means, but we danced and I had my one-liners like all cowboys do. I was like, "So, what you looking for in a man?" And I'm looking for, tall, dark, and handsome and all this. I'm like, I got one or two of those covered. And she said, "Well, first of all, I'm looking for a godly man that puts God first above all else and that will treat me like a lady with respect like the Bible talks about." And I'm thinking, strike one,
Oh
strike
my.
two. But I finally talked her into going out on a date with me, and she said, I'll go on a date with you if our first date can be a Bible study." And man, I knew, even though I didn't know the Lord at all at the time, I knew that I needed that. And she was so firm in her foundation of Christ that I knew I needed that. And so I said, "Yes, absolutely." And so I went back. Of course, the boys are all like, "How'd it go? How'd it go?" And I said, "We're doing Bible study. Wink, wink." But it did. Our first date was a 6-hour Bible study at the Clock Restaurant in Avon Park. And henceforth, the rest of the story.
What was that new when you went in for that? Was that new territory for you? I mean, when they get I don't know, maybe they Galatians. I mean, when they were doing this Bible study, did you find a lot of stuff that you did not know anything about?
Well, I'd never studied or heard of the Bible at all. Um, Oddly enough, my mom was a worship leader. She started playing piano when she was 6 and led worship in church all growing up. She was what I call a bunner. It's Pentecostal holiness, no
Mhm.
makeup, hair up in a bun, and really strict theology. Well, she grew up that way, and somehow or another met my dad, who was a wild heathen type of guy like me. Well, somehow or another they hooked up and got married. Well, he refused to let her play piano unless she played honky tonk music. So she quit playing piano or anything and wasn't allowed to teach us kids about the Bible. So I never learned anything about the Bible other than little hearsay here or there along the way. So it was all new to me. It was eye opening.
Did that lead to more sitting down, having conversations, talking to her
Oh,
about what is this all about? What is that all about?
man, I couldn't wait to get back to talk to her. And granted, she was beautiful. She was Miss Kentucky at the time. So,
Oh,
it was, I was not only intrigued by her looks and by her demeanor, but by the word. And she would, for the first time, she wasn't beating me up with God's word like a lot of people would try to do. She was encouraging me and uh, believing in me. And I wrote a song called "You Believed" that talks about that. How instead of, everybody else would say, "You ain't never going to amount to nothing. You're just a bar hag. You're this and you're that," and they were right. But she spoke encouragement into me. She said, "You know what? I believe in you, and I believe if you let God work in your life, you can do amazing things." And man, it wanted me to be a better person. So, heck yeah, man, I wanted more of that.
were you convicted? I mean, did you at some point say, I've got to accept Jesus. I've got to make this change in my life?
I did. I actually finally accepted Jesus, and she and I prayed together. And I still was lead singer of the band, and we had just got a small record deal, and a song was, "Why was hitting the radio," and things were going really good, and we had already booked out, you know, 3 months in advance, pretty heavy, and probably 6 months in advance. And soon as I went back out after that and started playing, I remember we were at the watering hole one night, and we were the house band there at the time. We'd play 5 nights a week there a lot of times, and uh, I remember going outside in between sets and feeling sick to my stomach, almost throwing up because I was so convicted. And I would see people come in and they would swap girlfriends and be cheating on their wives or cheating on their husbands. And I was like, man, I'm encouraging this. I'm up here playing music that tells them to do this. And they're like, heck yeah. And I'm like, oh no. And man, I finally had to sit down with the band and tell them, guys, I'll finish out our dates. I'll do what I said I'm going to do, but then I'm done. And it was not a happy time
They,
with the band at the time.
They must have been thunderstruck when you said, I found the Lord. I can't do this anymore.
You know, it led to the first Christian song I ever wrote, because when I left band practice that night where I broke the news, I remember they all looked at me and they said, Tommy, we know you. We know you'll be back out there in the bars in no time. This is just a fad. And I left practice that night and I said, boys, for this old cowboy, there's no turning back. And I went home that evening and wrote that song entitled No Turning Back. And it was my first song that ever hit radio as Christian music, and opened doors all over. Got me on TBN and TCT Network. And uh, at that time, it was kind of a new thing. That was when Randy Travis and Carrie Underwood were out with their songs, and Christian country was kind of a cool thing. It was kind of a new thing. So perfect timing.
So you were a solo artist at that time? You didn't have another band behind you?
Nope. At that time, I was just doing solo music, which in Christian music, it works a little better because, the Southern gospel groups made it famous for going out with a quartet and soundtracks. Um, so I would grab my guitar and go out and either play just acoustic sets or use a sound backing track, and just started hitting venues and churches all over the country.
So I was going to say your venues changed from honky tonks to churches and fairs, other places like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it was so relieving because in the bars we would play 5 nights a week, like I said, and I've still got I posted in our new trailer, our stage trailer, one of my old set lists from when I was with the country band. We would sing 72 songs a night.
Hokey smokes.
And we would do that 5 nights a week. And I remember my voice was just like toast. And then I started going to churches and I'm like, so you want me to sing for 45 minutes? And you're going to pay me this amount of money? And I'm thinking the whole band wouldn't make that much money for the whole week. And you're going to pay me that for 45 minutes. I felt like I was cheating the system,
Well,
but
the Lord opens doors.
Works.
Absolutely.
He does.
Now, as you started, did you do your own booking, or did Michelle start? Is this when she started kind of get into encourage you and say, hey, I can take care of this, that, and the other thing for you?
It was teamwork makes the dream work. She was already versed in marketing and promotions, so it fit right in. God had already prepared that path ahead of time, and we were fortunate enough to God just helped us out financially. My life was a mess when I met her, but as soon as I started tithing, which is a whole nother story in itself, she taught me how to tithe when I didn't have money. As a matter of fact, I remember her saying one time, she said, why don't you just try it? If you don't have enough money to make your payments as it is, what's it gonna hurt? I'm like, fine. I wrote my first tithe check, and God honored that and went from, being broke, bankrupt, to owning our own business in Orlando, owning our own salvage yard. And when we sold that, just a few short years later, it allowed for us to be debt free and to be able to go out on the road and start a full-time ministry. And I can't brag on that at all, other than allowing God to work in my life. But man, it was amazing. And Michelle just started calling places and saying, "Hey, here's what we got. Would you allow us to come share our ministry with you?" And doors started opening, and it's perfect timing because Christian country was cool, and Randy Travis, and, Jesus Take the Wheel. Those songs were opening the doors for us to go use that style of music, and worked great.
Well, God's timing is perfect timing. I guess you've answered a question for me because I was going to ask you which came first, the Cowboy Outreach America or T2?
T2 did,
Oh,
for
really?
sure. Yeah, we had our son. He was actually born when we went into full time ministry. You're talking about my son T2,
Yeah,
I assume,
Tommy,
right?
Tommy too, Tommy
Yep.
the second.
Um, he was born. He was a little over a year old when we got the bus and started traveling the country. And I remember he was so young, and we'd lock him in the bus, and we'd go do it because our church dates were so short. We could leave him in the bus.
Mm-hmm.
We'd probably get arrested if people knew it, but the bus was pretty secure, and we'd turn on Power Rangers in the bus, and we'd go in and do an event, and then come back out and hop in the bus and go. And when he was 3, he decided he wanted to start singing. So we had a couple of years where he'd get up there and sing a few songs, just being cute. And then along the way, some kids told him he couldn't sing, and he said, "Yeah, I don't want to sing anymore."
Oh,
So he was about 13 or 14 before I got him back on the stage again.
I was gonna tell you when I was very young, my parents, only heard this story when I was just a newborn. My parents would go out to eat at this little restaurant, and they would leave me in the car carrier in the back of the car, and they'd go in and have dinner, and come back out, and I was still sleeping. I
Yeah,
was none the wiser. So, but like you say, if people found that out now, they'd call it child abuse, and they said, no, we want you to have dinner. Now,
sure, yeah.
now he quit for about, I guess, 10 years. I was going to ask you how you got him started, if you gave him a ukulele or what, but how did he decide that he was going to sing and play the guitar for that matter?
Well, he had grabbed the guitar when he was probably 9 years old or so, but his fingers couldn't grip the neck
Yeah.
enough to chord it well. And he was always aggravated, but he kept trying and kept trying. And I remember we were driving down the road in the bus, and he always sits in the passenger seat right next to me. Me and him's had a great life, just chumming together. And he'd always sit over there with a guitar in his hand. And finally he said, "Dad, show me that D chord again, and show me the A chord again, show me the G chord again." And I'm trying to drive and put his fingers in the right place. And then, Barry, it was almost like a miracle. Well, I'm sure it was a miracle, but all of a sudden he just started playing.
It clicked.
It clicked. And it's all of a sudden like oh, my fingers are strong enough to hold these strings. So I had showed him the 3 chords enough to play Amazing Grace. And he and I started bawling as he's playing, and we're singing Amazing Grace together. And we're both tearing up, and he goes, "Daddy, Daddy, I can play." And it was like a kid riding a bicycle
Oh
for the
yeah.
first time.
Oh yeah.
And I kid you not, Barry, it was 3 days later tops. And he goes, "Hey, Dad, check this out." And I walked in the bus, and he played the lead solo to Hotel California
Oh really?
completely, and not cheating it, and like the record. And I was blown away. He goes, "Yeah, Dad, I looked up on YouTube the top 20 lead guitar solos of all time." And he said, "I learned all 20 of them
Hokey smokes.
in the first 3 days of playing guitar." And I'm talking about playing them like the record. And of course, he used YouTube to learn them,
Yeah.
but his fingers did it. I can't do it still today. I've been playing for 30 years. But he was just anointed from that day forward and playing guitar.
But now, what was he? What was he? You having like an old Gibson or something he was playing? Do you remember the guitar he was
At the
playing?
time, we had bought him what's called a player's guitar. It's a small version of an electric guitar.
Oh, like a salon guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it had a little earphone jack to where you could put it in your ear and play. So, only you could hear it basically. And little did we know, as he's rocking and rolling on that thing back there, that he's just ripping it until he finally plugged it into an amp and said, "Here, check this out."
Now, he was like, what, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there?
Yeah, he was probably 14 at that time when he started taking that and learning my songs and learning his own songs, started writing songs himself and singing again.
So
And by the time,
when did you tell him he's in the band?
oh, immediately, I was like, anytime you want to get up here, you can. And he made me look good, because I can still play three chords and make them sound decent, but without a capo, I'm toast. But he always just lights up the stage, and because of his anointing, on top of that, people are just drawn to him. And by the time he was 16, he was playing on the Grand Ole Opry. Um, I'm sitting there the night he debuted on the Grand Ole Opry. Garth Brooks's daughter debuted. So
Hmm.
one of my biggest heroes in country music, he and I are sitting there arm in arm bawling together backstage at the Opry because our kids are having their debut.
Oh, nothing like seeing your kid getting involved in doing what you. Now, did you ever play the Opry?
I have a lot, yeah, quite a few
Okay.
times.
Well, that's got to be going to. Did you play the Ryman at all?
I've done both, yes.
Wow,
Played both.
that's got to be a humbling experience to get up there where the greats, Lefty Frizzell,
It,
Hank Thompson, those guys.
it is, for a lack of better words, it is a spiritual thing. They call it the mother church, and I understand why, because you feel it when you stand on that circle. And when, one of the dates I did, I got to sing, I Saw the Light. And when I stood on that circle thinking, Hank Williams probably stood on this same circle singing this same song. It was like
Wow.
hair standing up on the back of my neck.
Now, when you started Cowboy Outreach Church, the traveling, how did you get that started? I mean, you were playing churches around? Did you kind of keep enlarging the circle until you started going out to kind of far flung places, people out of state, in out of area?
Well, it was a process because I tried everything. I never did really feel like my calling was to do church dates, and I did them, and that's what kept our ministry alive for the first 10 years is doing churches all over the country, and it did make a name for me and open up a lot of doors. Meanwhile, I'm releasing a lot of music on Christian country radio, and that opened up a lot of doors. Um, but I wanted to minister what I know still to this day is God called me to minister to the me of many years ago. That guy that was in the bar that was a good dude just didn't have any direction, and you couldn't pour a hymnal song on me and make me like it. I wanted to hear a steel guitar and a fiddle and a song that tells a story. But I didn't even know that existed. When I wrote No Turning Back, I'm like, I just recreated the wheel. I'm like, this is a country song that talks about life, my life and in general, but it talks about life. And it gave me hope and promise. And I'm like, that's what I want to share. Well, I couldn't really do that a lot in church because most of those people already found Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go do it out in the world, out at these rodeos where I used to be, and out at even at the bar people that I used to sing to. That's the kind of people I want to minister to. So I tried to promote Tommy Brandt concerts. Nobody knew Tommy Brandt out in the public. Churches did, but secular venues didn't. So I tried inviting in the 90s country singers of the day, Andy Griggs, Billy Dean, Brian White, had those guys, and we'd do concert series together. And I would get a bigger crowd, 700, maybe 1,000 people. But I'm like, this still isn't it. It's still isn't it. What can I do? And I went out I got invited to do a NASCAR event one time. And all of a sudden, I'm in front of 5,000 people. And I was like, wow, these people don't even know my name. But because of NASCAR, I've got a big crowd. And that's when God started saying, this is your outreach platform. Use the crowds that are already there and honor that venue to present the gospel. So when I came up with Cowboy Outreach America, it wasn't promoting Tommy Brandt. It wasn't even promoting Christian country music. It was a cowboy out in the arena of auto racing and eventually rodeos, uh, presenting the gospel. And it allowed me to piggyback on top of these other venues who had already worked all the promotions and such as that out. Now I had to have an established name and an established, uh, I had to they had to know that I was okay to work with.
Hmm.
And thankfully, along through the years, I'd met enough people in the cowboy industry and in the auto racing industry to have credibility. And just any artist couldn't go and say, "Hey, I'm going to go tell NASCAR I'm singing for them." So God had to open up some doors. But whenever I started not promoting Tommy Brandt anymore, so to speak, God started opening bigger platforms. And the Cowboy Outreach America is just an organization that we created that kind of allowed us to do that.
So, did you get involved with like a rodeo operation that staged rodeos different places, like when kind of following the circuit, if you will, like you follow the NASCAR circuit? They're going to have a race at Talladega or Martinsville, and you're going to go there, or they're going to have a rodeo here or there that as they go through the circuit, kind of follow the circuit around.
Well, I did a lot of cowboy churches. We actually helped start the cowboy church movement, and I don't take claim to that, but because we did the country style music, whenever they started building these cowboy churches around the country, the AFCC, American Fellowship of Cowboy Churches, contacted me and said, "Hey, we don't have worship teams at these churches yet. Why don't you go do music for them for a couple of weeks, try and get their worship teams set up, and then we'll pay you to go from church to church to church." So I got to know the cowboy culture all over the country, um, by helping with their worship teams. And because I knew sound from doing sound systems, I would help them set sound systems up, and they would actually pay me to come in and get their worship teams and sound systems pretty much set their church up. They would work with the pastors. But through that, I started to know cowboys all over the country. And I got invited to go to the PBR, professional bull riding, and start doing cowboy church there. And for a while was a pastor of PBR. Um, it was a really hard organization to work with, although I loved them and loved the rodeo culture. They were very political. Um, so they would say, you know, we'll let you come do church here if you bring 1,000 church parishioners to be our audience. They wanted the people in the seats.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if I didn't get the butts in the seats, is what they would call it, butts in seats, uh, they'd be disappointed in me. And then the next rodeo, they wouldn't give me as much time. And it was just a hard organization to work with to sew into. But through that, it got me into the rodeo culture, and then other organizations started contacting me. Hey, I saw you at the World Finals, for PBR. Will you come to a rodeo over here? And next thing you know, we're in the rodeo industry. Uh, so that's kind of how we got started
It's
on that side of things.
it's really amazing. Yeah, and you've got a great rig that you take. You got a portable stage. Do you carry that around with you now with the portable stage and the bus and all your setup goes with you now?
It does, after several years of, it's a big difference when you start. You go in a church, they got a sound system, and you're singing to 200 people mainly, maybe. But all of a sudden, I'm in front of 5,000 people, and I've got to provide sound for it. Well, if you hire a sound company, it's $20,000, and then you still have to set up all the equipment, drums. By then we're playing with a full band to make it lively and all this stuff. Um, so it was an ordeal. We're 5, 6 hour setup time for every event. And God gave me a vision of a trailer where everything is already preset in it. And I'm like, man, I can do this. This is doable. And because I had a background in sound and lighting already, I knew what equipment to use and how it needed to be set. So my son and I sat down and created this stage that in 20 minutes a full band can be playing, and we've serviced 8,000 people out of this thing before.
Wow.
With a 20-minute setup time. Um, and yeah, we carry that thing everywhere. It's opened doors in itself for us. We get booked to do events just because we have a stage.
Now, I heard a story that some of this came as a donation for your ministry.
Yeah. Oh God is just so amazing because I always laugh and say they call it a nonprofit ministry for a reason. It takes a lot to be out on the road, and but because we've met so many people along the way, it's not like it's odd because I always thought, you see the Billy Grahams and the people like that, and people just sow into them monthly, and they've always got money to do what they want to do with. And I was like, God, why doesn't that happen with us? Because we kind of get money as we need it. God always takes care of it, but it's not like we're sitting here on a bankroll at any given time. But God always supplies. So uh, this trailer, as it came about, um, as I needed even the toter to pull it, we wound up getting it for $40,000, which is half price or
Mm.
less than, it was worth well over 100, but I had a super opportunity to buy it. But I hopped in the car and went to pick this thing up, not having $40,000 in my hand or not even able to get a loan. And God said, don't get a loan. But I made 2 phone calls on the way up, and by the time I got there, I had $40,000 donated to us in the bank just from people I'd met along the way.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
and that's the way our whole ministry has always progressed. I mean, you look, our account may have $10,000 in it at any given time, which sounds like a lot, but I can spend that in fuel to get from here to South Dakota. But if I need $100,000 tomorrow, it seems like it's there. And God's just going, I got your back, but have faith. And I hate talking your ear off. I know
No,
people
please.
are probably going, this guy's talking everybody's ear off.
No,
But
please.
one of the things that I've learned, because it seriously bothers me a lot, because I'm a preparer. I'm a planner. I'm a visionary. I see things in advance, and therefore I want to get all my ducks in a row before I get there. I'm the kind of guy that's like that. I'm not a spur of the moment kind of a guy. So it would drive me crazy to know that I've got 5 events planned that's going to cost me $40,000 to put on. And I don't have that in the bank, but I've already got them planned and promised out. They're already booked. I'm liable for them. But I would book them out, and then I would be nervous and stressed out about not being prepared. But God would already tell me, do these, and I knew that I knew that I knew I was supposed to do them. And finally, I was laying in the back of my bus, just face down one day, just crying out to God, praying, God, why can't you pay for these in advance like you do some people? God, why can't you give me the money beforehand sometimes? And I was just crying out because of fear and stress. And he spoke to me, Barry, just like I'm talking to you one day. And he said, well, if I did, it wouldn't require any faith by
That's
you.
right. That's right. That's right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you, God. And he's like, without faith, it's impossible to please me. Where's your faith going to be if I provide for everything in advance? And then it gave me a whole new outlook. And I still prayerfully go into everything. Trust me, I don't just haphazardly do things. I know that God's telling me to do something when I do it, but I ain't afraid to do something and be $100,000 out, knowing that God told me to do it. He's got my back.
He's got the cattle
Here
on
I
a
am.
thousand hills.
Yes,
Yeah.
here I am, 23 years in the ministry. We are still debt free. We have never taken out a loan in our ministry. He has provided every step along the way. It may be the last hour. Sometimes it's after the last hour, but he's provided every step along the way.
Tom, I know that you perform and minister to a lot of the fans that are out there for the rodeos, for the car races, and such as that. Is there a special time when you have the participants that are a part of this? I've seen photos where you have all the rodeo guys are in a big circle around you. Are there times when the folks that are going to participate in the event come and you have a ministry time for them?
You know, it has been just another amazing walk in that aspect because when we started, especially we partnered with a group called Western Days in Michigan, and they are rough stock people. They have the rodeo arena, they have the bucking chutes, they have the rough stock, the bulls and everything. And they contacted us and said, "Hey, let's team up and start putting on these events." Well, those cowboys were not necessarily Christians at the time, and even if they were saved, maybe they weren't like active in ministry. So before every event, we always would gather the cowboys up before we would do it before the event. And then we had this mindset, hey, let's start the event by gathering all the cowboys up around a cross in the middle of the arena and show all of the audience, hey, we're all in this for God's purpose. So we'd pray with the cowboys all before that. And as we did that one after the other, these cowboys started saying, man, I've never felt anything like this before. This is powerful. Well, whenever we would have our gospel invitation, at, our second intermission, when the crowd's really big, we'd have a gospel invitation, invite the audience into the arena to the cross, same cross that the cowboys prayed at, to accept Christ or to come down for prayer. Before we know it, Barry, the cowboys would come out with the audience and begin praying for the audience. They had learned to be ministers, not just Christians. And that's when it became amazing because you see this cowboy over there laying hands on the back of another cowboy that came out of the audience, and they're both just bawling together, just crying out because the cowboy had already been there and done that, and he's helping for the first time in his life as a minister to somebody. And man, we have cultivated, or God has cultivated, worship leaders, lay pastors, and even pastors of the churches around the areas where we've been through this ministry of cowboys.
That's amazing. And you do this circuit. You go to different rodeos in sort of the same places, and cowboys do the same thing. They ride bulls here, they ride bulls there. Do you, as you do your ministry, do you get guys coming up saying, "I saw you here, I saw you there, I want to thank you"? People who have seen you a couple, 3, 4, 5 times.
It is. It's wonderful to hear the things that I never knew happened. We were at an event just this past summer, the craziest event. We set the whole arena up, sound checked, and it came a golly washer rain. It rained like 5 inches in 2 hours.
Wow.
The arena was 4 inches deep in water, and we had a funny clown there that day. We always have a rodeo clown, and the clown that we had there that day, we didn't use all the time. We'd only used him a couple of times in the past because he was a little bit rough, and sometimes he would say things that didn't line up. Some of his jokes wouldn't quite line up with our mission.
Might be a little blue.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we didn't use him a whole lot. But we noticed the last couple of times that we used him, he cleaned his act up. And during this event, he actually was wearing his swim trunks because he was out there standing in 4 inches of water in the middle of the arena doing his clown work. And we had a pause in the night because the sound system had messed up or something. I don't remember what happened, but he had to burn about 20 minutes of time. Normally clowns only have 5 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm.
But during that 20 minutes, he gave testimony where he had given his heart to Christ at one of my cowboy churches,
Wow.
and that it had changed his life so much that his family had changed. They had all gotten saved. And he gave 15 minutes of testimony that had me bawling my eyes out up there. I had no idea. And now he does clown work all over this country and gives testimony about Tommy Brandt everywhere he goes. Blows my mind that I didn't even know he was even at the event. So
Making disciples, you know.
making disciples just all along the way. And that's, that's what the Bible talks about. It's not about me going out and just leading people to Christ. It's the Bible says if one can put 1,000 to flight, two can put 10,000 to flight. So every disciple I can create not only multiplies, but it multiplies times 10 what I can do.
So when you go out and do a performance, what do you about half an hour, 45 minutes, and then have an altar call, and they go on to the rest of the day? Is that about how it works?
It's different at different events. Usually, what we do at the rodeos is we'll do about 20 minutes to open as people are coming in. We're getting to know them. We're singing, taking care of business, Sweet Home Alabama, working man blues and giving credit to the workers of the arena and stuff. Of course, we don't say the word beer, drinking beer in there. I say drink sweet tea or something like that in there. But, we use these secular songs and we draw them in. And then the first intermission, I'll sing like Brand New Man, the Brooks and Dunn song. Uh, Say, I'm a brand new man since I found Jesus. It was the greatest decision I made. I'll put a little plug in there about Christ or, um, I'll sing the song Broken that I do, or so, just another couple of songs at the first intermission, just kind of getting them hooked into, hey, this is what's coming, this is what's coming. By the second intermission, we have the gospel invitation. And then we still have a couple of intermissions after that, and then we uh, play as everybody's leaving. And by the end of the night, we're playing I Saw the Light, Will the Circle Be Unbroken, uh, songs that they can all dig in and sing together. And we
Mm-hmm.
actually sing another version of Sweet Home Alabama where I turn the words to Sweet Home Up in Heaven. They always love that. So that's kind of it. We sing 12, 14 songs throughout the night, but it's kind of split up throughout the evening.
Since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there have been a lot of younger people who have come to discover the Lord, and I think they probably span all different socioeconomic strata. So, do you see any of the Charlie Kirk effect? Do you see younger people coming in and being more receptive to your message?
Absolutely. The very first event we did after that, we were in a place called Atlanta, Michigan, and we had an invitation like we normally do, and it was a smaller crowd. We probably had about 1,000 people there, and we had been there 2 years prior, two times prior, and the invitations were a little bit small. We'd have 20 or 30 people come down, and generally they were old farmers that would come down, maybe a few youth. But this particular event, we probably had 40 teenagers come down.
Mm.
And teenagers are different when they get saved. Um, and how I say that is you can tell the difference when they're true about it. They come down. Generally, they are very emotional. The older people are, you can see pain, you can see hurt, you can see in their eyes what's going on. The youth, the little kids, they're all grins. They're like just happy. But the teenagers, they're very emotional when they get saved. And it was the most amazing thing because we had 40 teenagers hugging it out, tears flying everywhere. It was like you could see the chains falling off of them, the weight coming off of their shoulders. They were they were testifying out there and asking God to forgive them for things that they'd probably been carrying for their whole lives. And I believe it's all this whole movement that, from since Charlie Kirk passed, whether you like him or not, or like it or not, it has opened up the eyes to the gospel like never before.
So we're at the end of October. It's going to start getting cold. The events up north are kind of have wound down or winding down, and you've got some time off. So you're here until what, in May or so? Is that when you start heading back out again?
Yeah, we'll start probably a little before that. Generally, the rodeo circuits up north start in June. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we probably won't hit any rodeos until then. Generally, April and May we do a lot of uh, recovery centers through that time. I feel really led, and my son actually has a calling to minister to recovery addicts. Um, so we'll start leaving here. Actually, we're doing one the end of the end of November in Georgia. Uh, but since the rodeo season is kind of down for us and the auto racing season is kind of down, we do a lot of that, uh, which is a smaller, different type. It's just me and him with acoustic guitars sitting up there for an hour sewing into these guys. But it's a different kind of ministry, but we enjoy doing it. And because it's his passion, his calling, I kind of let him lead those, and I just sit up there and be his guitar player for a change.
So from now through March, you work on the truck. You put everything back together again. You maybe write a few songs. What? You actually see your wife for 3 days in a row? I mean, how does that work
Yeah,
exactly?
for a fact, I get to see my grandkids and spend some good quality time with them. And, everybody's like, "So you don't work for that?" We kind of use that as downtime the best we can, and because we're on the road for 8 months solid and never see anybody or never take a whole lot of time off, we pretty much take 4 months and try to downtime, but we do use that time to fix equipment because you take a stage. You can imagine if you took all of your church equipment, speakers, sound system, wires, uh, monitors, lights, smoke machines, and you drug it down the road in a trailer and let it beat up and down for 8 months, you can imagine how much repairs and fixing we got to do by the time we
Amen.
get back. So,
Yeah.
and what since we do rodeos, oh my gosh, we vacuum and steam clean and vacuum again and blow out with a leaf blower, and we're blowing dirt out from all over this country.
So let me a couple of things. First of all, I know Tommy won't talk about this, but I will. He's won almost 60 different awards from vocalist and entertainer of the year. You got the Living Legend Award, which I would take with a mixed bag. That'd be kind of bittersweet because you got to be old to be a living legend, you know. So, so
Beats being a dead legend, though.
yeah, you've done a great job. Now, are you going to do any while you're down having the downtime? Are you going to put on any more CDs or write any more songs or stuff like that?
I get asked that a lot. I think I've got 9 CDs done now at this time, which really tells you how old I am. Um, I've got more songs than I can ever sing. I love singing and writing, or I love writing with a passion. Um, but it is time consuming, and definitely recording is time consuming, although I usually produce my own stuff now. Um, I haven't lost the passion for it, but because in the outreach ministry, we don't use a whole lot of original music, I don't do as much as what I used to do. I still have some song ideas. I've got a little app on my phone that I uh, write down ideas. I've got probably 30 songs that I can't wait to write. But yeah, I'll get back into doing that some this winter. And I, to be honest with you, Barry, and everybody out there, I'm pretty transparent in a lot of things. I've I've got a real bad taste in my mouth about songwriting right now
Hmm.
because I've had a couple of people, well, just got another one just last night. Hey, let me send you this song. I think you'll love it. It's something you'll want to record. I had AI help me write it. Matter of
Oh,
fact, AI did the demo for me. Man, wait till you hear it. And boy, it has soured me because I'm like, how many songs nowadays? Because even the song this guy sent me last night, fantastic. It's a hit. It's a great written song. The demo, fantastic. I would have picked this song up in a heartbeat, when I was out shopping songs. When he told me it was I don't want none of it. I'm out. That took all the heart and soul out of it to me.
Yeah, you and I have to have a talk about that because I in one of these podcasts, if you go back, I do an interview with AI. I do 2 out of the 3 AIs that I have that would talk back to me. I did an interview with them. It
Wow.
was interesting. It was interesting to talk to a machine like that and have it
Wow.
talk back to you. I did it just for fun, and I did find that the one of the ones that told me it couldn't talk to me, I found out later it could talk to me. So I would call him and I just ask him questions. I just like you, I just interviewed it. It was interesting. It was an interesting experience. So,
Wow.
well, maybe we'll get the Tommy Brandt live album. The AI can't.
Yeah.
AI can't do that. So, but Tommy, so have you got your next year's schedule set up yet, or does that happen over the next 4 or 5 months that you get that all in place?
It'll happen over the next few months. January is when all of the fair buyers conventions start, where all the county fairs around the country start booking events, and that's where we get a lot of our bookings at. Is but Western Days and myself will go to the fair buyer convention and present, Western Days championship bulls and barrels. And we're starting to get a bigger name, so we're starting to be able to pick and choose which ones we go to and which ones we don't, which is a good thing. So that's when we really put our schedule together. We've got some that we go to every year, so we already know when they are. But for the most part, it'll start in January.
So if folks want to reach out to you, you have both social media presence and a regular web page, right?
Yep, we're still old school. We've got a regular website, tommybrandt.com or .org. There's also cowboyoutreachamerica.org or .com. And then we're on Facebook and Twitter, which I don't use a whole lot, or X, I guess you call it now. But Facebook's, my son says, "Dad, that's for old people." Well, that's me.
Old is an interesting idea. Old is 15 years older than you are, and you can tell him right now that to kids who are 15 years younger than you, son, are old. Just saying. Been there, done that. Tommy, you're doing a great work. We hope that folks will reach out and look at your ministry. Can they still pick up the CDs off your website? Can they still, or do they have to come buy them off the bandstand?
Nope, you can get them on the website. Matter of fact, any place that sells downloads, iTunes, all of those places have it as well. So you're welcome to find it anywhere you want.
Tommy Brandt, home for the holidays and home for a little while. Tommy, I really appreciate all you're doing and all you're going to be doing. You've been a great friend, and you have just done a great work across the United States.
You're such a blessing, and I pray continued success in your podcast. Can't wait to hear some in the future.
Thank you. Tommy Brandt, TommyBrandt.com or Cowboy Outreach Ministries.org. You've been listening to The Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the Ridge Floor Studios in the city of Charm. Beautiful downtown Avon Park. As always, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, just put them in the comments below. If you'd like to reach out and get a sponsorship package, you can email me at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, this is Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.